Hey friend, tonight we're not stepping into the mind of a philosopher, we're stepping onto a real battlefield. But forget everything you've ever seen on screen, the choreographed sword duels, the slow-motion elegance of horse charges, and that spotless armor that looks like it was just pulled from a museum. Tonight, we dive into the raw reality. Blood, confusion, panic, sweat, and steel. This is the true face of medieval warfare. Spoiler alert, it bears no resemblance to the movies. So, as you find a comfortable position, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only, of course, if you genuinely enjoy my content. Also, let me know in the comments where you're joining from and what time it is for you. It's always a wonderful thing to see friends from all over the world joining us. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that gentle humming sound. Let's slowly step into tonight's journey together. Chapter 1. The Cold Greeting of Dawn. You're startled awake by a sound that's a mix of a horn and a man screaming a word at you. March. There is no snooze button. No soft mattress. Only the damp, cold earth. And a deep, spiritual ache in your bones from having slept in your armor. You try to stretch, but immediately regret it. Your chainmail has become one with your body, like a clingy axe. You look around. A dozen other soldiers are waking up, each with the same look of regret and trench foot. One guy is still sound asleep, his head resting on a helmet full of rainwater. Another is painstakingly trying to pry a slug out of his boot with a dagger. For a moment, you can't decide if you should eat breakfast first or apologize to your internal organs in advance. Speaking of which, breakfast is what we'd call a historically significant disappointment. It's a crust of bread so hard it could deflect arrows possibly made last Lent. You chew slowly, not because you're savoring it, but because your jaw is still sore from yesterday's feast, a meal that included meat of questionable origin and something that may have once been a vegetable. You wash it down with warm ale, because in the Middle Ages, drinking water was a game of bacterial roulette. There's no time for grooming. Not that it matters. You haven't seen your own face in weeks, and frankly, that's for the best. You splash a handful of swamp water on your cheeks for the illusion of hygiene. Then, you strap on gear. That smells like it's been fermenting in fear. Chapter 2. The March of Despair. The command is given, march. And so you do, not because you want to, but because the alternative, staying behind and getting accused of desertion, usually ends with something being chopped off. So you trudge forward, one squelching, miserable footstep at a time. The ground is less earth and more moist despair. Mud is a given, but this is no ordinary mud. It's the kind that sucks at your boots like it's trying to steal your soul, or at least your left foot. You stop to adjust a strap and instantly fall behind, drawing a glare from the man behind you. Whose face says, "I will eat you if this slows me down again." Armor, it turns out, was not designed for hiking. It chafes, it pinches, and it rubs in places you didn't even know had skin. Your shoulders ache, your thighs burn, and your inner thighs are forming an alliance against you with every clanking step. You are essentially a walking iron sausage, being slow roasted in your own sweat. The air smells like livestock, cheap onions, and fear. Someone ahead passes gas with the kind of force that suggests they lost a battle with last night's turnip stew. You try to breathe through your mouth, but immediately regret that decision. 2. You pass a dead hedgehog, a broken cart, and what might be a toe. No one stops. Stopping is for people who enjoy being yelled at. The sergeant yells anyway. He doesn't stop yelling. It's his entire personality now. Morale is non-existent. Some men sing war songs to cope. Others mutter prayers. One guy in the back just screams into the wind. No one stops him, honestly. It helps. At one point, you think, maybe the enemy will surrender before we get there. Then you remember they're probably thinking the same thing, which means this is going to end with someone panicking, everyone stabbing ... and you trying to remember which end of the spear goes where. Chapter 3. The Camp, a home of filth and fear. After hours, a hill appears. Of course it does. Every medieval battle takes place at the top of a stupid hill. As you begin the ascent, someone slips and rolls down. No one helps. They're better off now. Eventually, you arrive at the place where you'll not sleep tonight, the battle camp. It's less a base of operations and more an organized outbreak. There are tents, sure, if you're nobility. The rest of you get a patch of mud ... slightly less cursed than the rest. You stake your spot by collapsing on the ground and calling it a bed. Your neighbor does the same. Congratulations, you've started a trench community. The smell hits you next. A horrifying cocktail of wet wool and washed bodies, fermented boots, and whatever is rotting near the food cart. There's a buzz in the air, not excitement, just flies, thousands of them. Some of them have names now. You've made peace with that. Then there's the latrine. And by latrine, we mean a shallow hole in the ground that was dug in haste and regret. Privacy, none. Smell, biblical. You try not to look anyone in the eyes during your visit. Everyone's dignity has already fled. You're handed a bowl of stew. It's gray. That's the only flavor ... gray. You ask what's in it, and the cook makes eye contact for 5 uncomfortable seconds before walking away. You eat it anyway because you're starving, and you hope whatever meat is in there didn't have a name 2 hours ago. Some men are sharpening weapons, others are playing dice. A few are praying very loudly, not out of devotion, but to make sure everyone sees they're praying, just in case God is offering extra protection to the dramatic ones. Then there's the sounds, hacking coughs, distant weeping, a man singing off-key about bread, and somewhere, someone trying to play a lute like it's a weapon. You hear a night bark an order. He's clean. He smells like lavender. You hate him instantly. Night falls. You curl up in your damp cloak, lying next to a guy who snores like he swallowed a donkey. You try to sleep, but your brain is too busy imagining all the ways you could die tomorrow, or tonight, if that goat kicks you in your ribs again. And as you finally start to doze, a voice yells from the distance, "Form up at sunrise." Fantastic, another beautiful morning await. Chapter 4. The General's Hollow Words. Dawn breaks, and with it comes the icy realization ... that you're going to die in a field, probably soon, possibly before lunch. You haven't even brushed your teeth, not that you have a toothbrush or any teeth worth saving. Trumpets sound, men groan. You crawl out of your damp cocoon of lice-infested wool to find your comrades already pretending to be motivated. You line up because standing in rows makes people feel slightly more in control of impending doom. It's a lie, but it's one you can shuffle into with numb feet and questionable bowel control. And then he appears, the noble commander, a man wearing polished armor so clean it's practically glowing. He's got that energy only people who've never been punched in the face tend to have. He surveys the troops like a disappointed parent who just found out you joined the losing side in a tavern brawl. He clears his throat. Everyone braces. It begins. Men, today we fight for glory. Pause for effect. Someone near you coughs up something alive. For our king, our lands, our honor. The crowd murmurs, mostly from stomach cramps, not patriotism. Look to your brothers. Look to your steel. You glance sideways. The man next to you is visibly shaking and has his helmet on backward. His steel is bent. The enemy fears us. They probably don't. They probably have their own guy yelling the same thing in another accent. If you die today, oh good, the cheerful bit, you die as heroes. You suppress the urge to raise your hand and ask, can I die later, maybe as a baker? Then comes the bit about God. God is on your side, which is reassuring, except you're fairly sure God's been busy smiting everyone equally this season. The speech ends with a sword thrust to the sky and a mighty shot of forward. No one moves. A few guys blink. One guy sneezes. The shouting continues until someone finally shuffles forward and the rest reluctantly follow. Not out of conviction, mind you, mostly because standing still means the commander might single you out for a volunteer job, and you've heard what happened to the last volunteer. Thus ends the pep talk. You are now spiritually prepared to panic with a purpose. Chapter 5. The Line of Terror. So now it's time to form ranks. A noble phrase conjuring images of precision, discipline, and strategy. What you actually get is a very confused clump of people vaguely facing the same direction, half of whom are still trying to put on their helmets. Some are holding weapons they just picked up 5 minutes ago. One guy is gripping a pitchfork. You're pretty sure he's just here by accident. Your sergeant, who was probably a pig farmer 3 years ago, starts barking numbers. No one knows what they mean, but everyone nods as if they understand. Front line, shield wall, he screams. Second line, pikes forward. You do as instructed, even though the guy in front of you has his shield upside down and is using it to itch his back. To your left is a guy with a spear twice his height who keeps poking people unintentionally. To your right is a man humming a battle hymn ... That may or may not just be Greensleeves with different lyrics. Directly behind you is someone breathing like he's been practicing dramatic dying noises in advance. You suspect he might not even be wounded, just ready. The cavalry is off to one side, horses pawing the ground dramatically. Knights sit tall and pristine in full plate armor that cost more than your entire village. They look majestic. You, meanwhile, are standing in borrowed boots and chain mail that smells like someone died in it. Probably ... because someone did. There's a sudden order to move forward and tighten the line. This is easier said than done ... when every second man is stepping on someone else's foot and the mud is threatening to swallow small soldiers whole. Your feet slide, someone elbows you, your shield is backward now, and you don't have the emotional energy to fix it. Then the drum beat begins, a slow, ominous thud ... that tells everyone it's about to start. Men start whispering prayers, one man starts quietly sobbing. You pretend not to notice, mostly because you're busy making your own peace with mortality. You take a deep breath, raise your weapon, and try not to pass out. This is it. You're ready. Well, as ready as anyone can be in a crooked line of terrified peasants. Chapter 6. A Sky of Blackened Steel. Just when the formation starts looking somewhat believable, meaning no one is actively walking in the wrong direction, the sky betrays you. It begins with a sound, a soft, distant whoosh ... that becomes a collective whisper of doom. Then the shouting starts, shields up. You scramble to obey, though someone nearby is still trying to figure out which end of the shield is up. A moment later, the sky darkens, not with clouds, but with hundreds of tiny death sticks launched from the enemy's side with alarming enthusiasm. And then they fall. The arrows rain down with all the mercy of an angry god having a very bad day. The man to rows ahead of you drops instantly, an arrow sticking out of his shoulder like a forgotten quill. Someone screams, someone else curses in Latin, or maybe he was just sneezing. It's hard to tell through the panic. Here's what the movies don't show. Arrows don't glide gracefully into targets like ballerinas with sharp toes. They thud, crack, stick, and occasionally bounce off armor before embedding themselves in things not meant to be pierced ... like feet, thighs, and whatever counts as emotional stability. You try to shrink behind your shield, which suddenly feels far too small and alarmingly homemade. An arrow clatters off it with a metallic clang, and you immediately decide that this shield is now your best friend. You mentally name it Gerald. You whisper promises to Gerald that if you survive, you'll never talk badly about its lopsided shape again. To your left, someone is cursing the archers. To your right, someone is being cursed, mostly because he forgot to duck. Behind you, a man is yelling that he's hit, though you strongly suspect he's just trying to get out of what's coming next. Then the second volley comes. At this point, any illusion of calm has evaporated. Veterans crouch low and mumble mantras. New recruits cry openly. One guy just lies down and pretends to be dead. Not a terrible strategy, honestly. Eventually, the sky clears. You're alive. Gerald did good. But now, the real horror begins. Close combat, which means it's time to get very sweaty, very loud, and probably stabbed. Chapter 7. The meat grinders. There's no countdown, no dramatic drum roll, no theatrical charge like in the songs. One moment you're trembling in your half-formed line, and the next, all hell breaks loose. It starts with a surge. Your side moves forward, not so much with courage as with the reluctant momentum of men who know they'll be trampled if they hesitate. Someone ahead of you yells something inspiring, promptly trips, and gets stepped on. You don't stop to help, not because you're cruel, but because you're fairly certain you'll join him if you do. And then you hit, literally. There's a collision. You slam into another human being, like a sack of potatoes colliding with a sack of potatoes wearing sharp objects. Forget fancy swordplay. This is not a dance. This is a meat grinder. You swing your weapon, maybe a sword, maybe an axe, maybe just a glorified kitchen tool. You don't aim. You don't have time. You flail. You hear metal crash against metal, wood shatter, men grunt, and someone nearby repeatedly yelling ARGH like it's a war chant. The fighting is close, intimate, really. You are now deeply aware of the smell of the enemy, sweat, fear, and onions. There is no such thing as personal space. There is only panic. At one point, you stab downward and hope it wasn't your own foot. Your helmet fogs up. You can't see. You can't breathe. Someone's shoulder slams into your ribs, and you both stumble sideways, gasping. There's blood on your gauntlet, not yours, probably, could be, doesn't matter. A man swings at your head. You duck out of reflex. He hits someone else. You exchange a brief glance, half apology, half shrug. There's no time for blame, only surviving. You try to remember your training, but it mostly consisted of swing hard and don't die. So, you keep swinging, occasionally hitting, mostly missing. Every now and then, someone falls. Sometimes they scream. Sometimes they go quiet instantly. You try not to look. This isn't a movie. This is a bar fight at the world's worst tavern, with 500 angry men and no one to break it up. And it's just ... getting started. Chapter 8. The Symphony of Hell. If you thought a medieval battle would sound like the elegant clash of swords and heroic trumpets, you are breathtakingly mistaken. It sounds more like a livestock market colliding with a blacksmith shop during an earthquake. The first thing you notice is the screaming. It's constant. Not just from the wounded, though there are plenty of those, but from the living. Men yell to psych themselves up. They yell because they've been stabbed. They yell because someone stepped on their foot, or because they forgot whose side they're on and are now swinging wildly at anything that moves, including a bush. You've got the shrill screams of young lads who should have stayed in the bakery ... guttural bellows from big men with axes, and the high-pitched, borderline apologetic whimper of a guy realizing he's wearing the wrong team's colors. Somewhere behind the lines, someone's shouting, "Hold the line," with all the hope of a man yelling at the tide to stop. No one listens. You can't even hear him. You're too busy dodging weapons and wondering if your left arm always made that clicking sound. Then come the weapons themselves. Swords clang against shields. Maces make a dull, horrifying thump when they connect with something soft, usually face. Arrows whistle past your ears with the precise sound of regret. Occasionally, a spear cracks through armor, and the resulting shriek makes your spine reconsider its commitment to standing upright. But the worst sound, it's not the screaming, it's not even the dying. It's the wet sounds, yes, wet. The squelch of someone stepping in something that used to be a person. The slurp of blood and mud mixing beneath your boots. The squish when someone lands badly and doesn't get up. These aren't sounds you forget. They take up permanent residence in your nightmares. You also hear armor clanking, men crying for their mothers, a horse screaming, which, by the way, is profoundly haunting, and somewhere, and believably, someone trying to sing a hymn badly and out of tune. Amid it all, your ears start to ring, not from injury, just overload. You start to operate on instinct because your brain has given up and gone on break. And still, the screaming continues. Chapter 9. The Unseen End. If you were hoping for a cinematic, slow-motion end, where you deliver a final monologue before dramatically collapsing, I regret to inform you that's not how this goes. Most people in a medieval battle died unseen and heard, and from behind. Usually by a guy who didn't even know your name. Sometimes it was even someone on your own side. You see, the battlefield is not a polite arena. It's a sweaty, chaotic mosh pit, where everyone's one sneeze away from a fatal misunderstanding. 1 minute you're swinging your axe like you mean it, ... the next, thunk. Something pierces your back, and your knees betray you. You fall forward into the mud with the grace of a collapsing haystack. No one notices, no one has time. There are no final words, no hand to hold, just you, the dirt, and the very strong suspicion ... that this could have been avoided if you'd become a monk. Then there are those taken down by horses, not stabbed, not slashed ... trampled. Nothing says ignoble death, quite like becoming one, but the soul beneath a panicked warhorse named Buttercup. And let's not forget friendly fire. Not the kind with explosives, but the kind where a poorly trained militiaman swings a flail in a wide, hopeful arc, and accidentally removes your ear or your head. Either way, you're remembered as that guy who stood a bit too close to Jeff. Some fall and are simply left behind. Whether unconscious, injured, or just deeply committed to pretending to be dead, they lie still, our boots stomp past. Some of them live, some don't. It all depends on locked mud and whether a looter mistakes them for actual cargo. And sometimes it's insultingly random. A slipped foot on blood-soaked grass, a snapped ankle, and a hole someone dug to poop in, or getting crushed under a panicked pile of men trying to flee but going the same direction. In short, medieval death wasn't majestic. It was awkward, undignified, and almost always sudden. Which is why when a man survives, he's not celebrated for his bravery, but for his sheer dumb luck. Chapter 10. Aftermath and the Vultures. The battle is over. You're not quite sure how it ended. There was no dramatic banner raised, no villainous general shouting, "Retreat," as trumpets blared. One moment it was chaos, the next fewer screams, less clanging, more groaning. That's how you know it's done. The nose shifts from aggressive to exhausted. You look around, blinking through blood, ... hopefully not yours, and sweat. The field is littered with bodies, weapons, and the occasional boot that somehow separated from its owner and is now resting politely atop a rock. It's quiet, unsettlingly so. Someone mumbles, "We won," with all the enthusiasm of a man who just found out he gets to live, but only in a tent full of disease. Another guy is yelling, victory, while clutching his own arm, which is no longer fully attached. You nod in agreement because, technically, yes, you are upright, breathing, and mostly unperforated. That is victory. But the truth is, in medieval warfare, victory doesn't mean fanfare. It means not being dead yet. It means dragging your bruised, aching carcass back across the field to the camp, past fallen friends and former enemies, all of whom share the same blank expression. After the swords are sheathed and the groaning becomes the dominant battlefield soundtrack, it's time for the least glamorous phase of combat, cleanup. You might assume this means burying the dead and tending to the wounded, and technically, that's part of it. But really, it's a mix of triage, looting, and a kind of horrifying medieval arts and crafts project where the materials are body parts. First, the medics arrive, and by medics, we mean men with knives, bad eyesight, and zero formal training. They specialize in phrases like, "That'll have to come off," and "bite on this stick." An experienced surgeon might use wine to clean your wound. A less experienced one might drink it first. Meanwhile, bodies are being dragged into haphazard piles. Some are covered, most aren't. You recognize a face or two, but you don't linger. The smell is turning spiritual. Flies arrive en masse, excited for the all-you-can-eat buffet. One lands on your open wound. You swat it, then realize that's probably the cleanest thing you'll experience today. Other soldiers are salvaging equipment, which is a polite word for looting. They rummage through corpses for swords, helmets, shoes, anything not nailed down or still twitching. You don't judge. You do the same. You need new boots, and Gregor doesn't need his anymore. Sorry, Gregor. By nightfall, the battlefield has quieted. The living stumble back to camp, covered in mud, blood, and a growing suspicion that the worst is still ahead. Conclusion: the liars fire. Surviving a medieval battle doesn't earn you peace. What it does earn you is a seat around the fire, a lukewarm mug of something vaguely alcoholic, and the right to start rewriting history before your bruises even finish forming. This is how it always ends. Not with a noble ceremony, not with a bard singing songs of your heroism. It ends with a bunch of filthy, traumatized men sitting on damp logs, trying to one-up each other with stories that get more questionable by the minute. You listen as a man swears he personally took down 6 knights with nothing but a frying pan. Another claims he caught an arrow midair and threw it back. Someone else says he faced off with a war elephant in France, where there are no elephants. You nod, you sip, you lie a little, too. In your version, you didn't trip over a corpse and scream. You strategically repositioned. The part where you tried to crawl into a shrub to avoid cavalry, that becomes a stealth maneuver. You skip the moment where you begged a squire to hold your hand during the arrow storm, because everyone here is doing the same thing, turning trauma into legend. It's not about ego, it's survival. If you can laugh about it, maybe it didn't scar you permanently. If you tell the story well enough, maybe it'll drown out the actual memories. The smell of burnt flesh, the look in a dying man's eyes, the sound of metal hitting bone. By now, someone's boasting a questionable piece of meat, and no one's asking questions. Laughter bubbles up, dry and slightly desperate. A man plays a lute that's missing to strings. The tune is off, but no one cares. A woman, a camp follower, patches a sleeve and hums like the world outside the fire's glow doesn't exist. You stare into the flames and think you lived through it. Barely, accidentally, miraculously. Soon you will be on the road again, off to another fight, another glorious encounter. But for now, there's warmth, there's bread, there's the camaraderie of men who know exactly how much of your story is false, because theirs is too. And for one night, at least, that's enough. Then you get called back for another skirmish next week, and you go.